If they play their cards right, the Chicago Bulls could become the league's next Phoenix Suns to rise from the depths of despair and turn themselves into finals contenders. I'm going to tell you how they can do it. I'm Ross. This is Arturis Fan Club. It's 7 a.m. and I'm half asleep. And if you're not subscribed, you should be. Do that right now because it helps me a lot and I really appreciate the support. Thank you guys. So I was just thinking about it after the game one win, Suns over Bucks last night in game one of the NBA Finals. There are just so many ways and weird similarities and comparisons that I feel like can be drawn to what the Bulls are doing in their rebuild and how successful the Suns were in theirs. Obviously, for years, the Suns had the issue of they're trying to develop this talent. They keep trying to develop this talent, but they can't win. They can't put the right pieces around Devin Booker, or Ayton is underperforming, not fulfilling his full potential. And then they went out and they got a new front office. And then they got a new head coach, and then they made a bunch of moves, got rid of the players from the old regime, started fresh, and revitalized the team. They got close to the playoffs. Obviously, they had that great stretch in the bubble, and it looked like they were ready to take that leap to become playoff contenders. And then they made a trade that will probably go down in history as one of the most franchise-altering trades in league history. And obviously, I'm talking about the trade for Chris Paul. I mean, there's so many... There are so many reasons we could dissect that trade. I mean, Chris Paul was coming off a couple seasons where he was playing injured. Obviously, he's on the wrong side of 30. He's on the wrong side of 35 now. There were questions and concerns about the contract. He's kind of on an albatross contract. But the Suns took the leap. They made all that stuff work. And obviously, it's paying dividends. He is still a fantastic player. And I mean, it's going to be between him and D-Book for finals MVP should the Suns go the distance and clinch this series. But I just wanted to take, I mean, even if the Suns don't win the NBA Finals, what they've done is still worth talking about. It's incredible. And they've really set the blueprint for teams on how to correctly rebuild and maximize the strengths of a couple core players. That is the blueprint now, because they started with those couple core players, they stripped the rest of the parts, and they rebuilt the team around them. And that's what the Bulls under Arturis Karnisovas and Mark Eversley, the new front office, are going to be doing. So I wanted to run it down and just kind of like show you the ways this could go in our favor as Bulls fans. I'm sure there's Suns fans out there watching this like, you guys ain't good enough to be like us. And you're right. Right now, we're not. We don't have the pieces. But there are similarities there, and the basic building blocks are kind of in place. And I think the most obvious example of that is Zach Lavine. Devin Booker for years was given criticism because he scored a lot but didn't win games. Some questioned his efficiency, said it was empty stats. A lot of narratives that I never fully subscribed to. I've always really liked Devin Booker, but Zach Lavine has had similar criticisms placed on him. But they are both volume scorers who do not sacrifice efficiency. I think Devin Booker is a little bit different. He plays more in the mid-range. Zach Lavine, obviously, he is uber athletic. He has the full dunking package, but these are two guys who can score literally anywhere on the court. And I think they're similar enough that you can make that comparison that, you know, you run the offense through their limitless scoring ability, and you try to put other pieces around them to either get the ball to them or to make their shots when the ball reaches them. I look at a guy like Mikal Bridges, kind of reminds me of Patrick Williams, a guy who is a great defender between 1 through 5, between all positions. He's developed... I should say Bridges has developed his offensive game. Pat is still working on that, but definitely some comparisons there as these young guys who are very long and switchable defenders. And then I look at like a Jay Crowder who obviously has finals experience, has NBA playoffs experience. And he reminds me a little bit of a guy like Thad Young. It's not a perfect comparison. Crowder has more of the outside game, but obviously good defenders, good veteran leaders, guys who have been around in the league for a long time and play with a toughness and a hard-nosed mentality that every playoff team needs. That's kind of where things are going to start to get a little tricky, because there's not a perfect comparison for DeAndre Ayton, obviously. Nikola Vucevic is our center, and they play completely different games, of course. But Vuce is an elite scorer and an elite rebounder. Ayton is an elite rebounder as well. Obviously, Vuce is not the rim protector or defender that DeAndre Ayton has made himself out to be. But the huge upside with Vucevic's offense obviously makes up for some of those deficiencies on defense, which I'm sure there are some Bulls fans out there who disagree. There's a couple I have in mind right now, but I think this is more of a stretch to compare the two to each other. But in the Bulls rebuild, obviously things will be a little bit different to maximize the strengths around Vucevic. This next one kind of pains me to say, but Cameron Payne, Kobe White. I mean, yeah, like it's there. And fuck, this hurts. Cameron Payne right now today is the better player of the two. These guards who can get hot from three, they're sneaky in the lane, and they'll get their teammates involved off the bench. I think that's a totally fair comparison for Kobe White and what we're hoping he can develop into in his career. I mean, you want more from a 7th overall pick, but hey, for now, I think this is a totally fair comparison. Next guy is a guy like Torrey Craig, who at first I was thinking like Garrett Temple, and then I was thinking also like Troy Brown Jr. He could fit into either of those. Two guys that the Bulls picked up for real cheap. Same thing, Suns picked up Torrey Craig for real cheap, and has been a very delightful surprise on defense. And I think that's kind of where the comparison to Troy Brown Jr. I think gets its strength, because he does the little things. He helps the team out between the margins. He's obviously not going to be an offensive powerhouse, but he still has the ability to score when needed. But defense is what you're using him for, and a guy who kind of just needed the opportunity. So that's kind of where I get Troy Brown Jr. and obviously Garrett Temple, similar on defense and in terms of career, needed a chance to get some playing time. And he's a veteran as well. But Garrett Temple also has a very strong passing ability, might be a little bit better of a scorer. But either way, I mean, you have the guys who fit that role that Torrey Craig plays for the Suns. And actually, as I keep bringing this up, this is probably like the 5th time I brought this up. My guy Nick, shout out Nick, has been a big proponent of getting Torrey Craig onto the Bulls, and I am all for it. I really like the guy, and I think he would make us a lot better. So there is obviously one player that I haven't brought up yet that has been notably absent for these player comparisons. And of course, that's Chris Paul, because the Bulls don't have a Chris Paul. And the Suns didn't have a Chris Paul before last season. They were in very similar situations, and you kind of see where my head's going now. So looking at this offseason, there are going to be a lot of veteran point guards available on the market. Chris Paul could be one of them. Now, I don't know where his head's at. If the Suns win it all, maybe he feels comfortable with the accomplishment and is ready to move on to a new challenge with a new team. Maybe he wants to run it back and see if they can repeat. That's fine too. But there's other veteran point guards out there. Obviously, Kyle Lowry is the number one name that comes to mind. Mike Conley, Spencer Dinwiddie, like there are quite a few of these like veteran point guards who have been around in the league for a little bit. None of them as good as Chris Paul, mind you. I'm not going to jump to that high level, but it's interesting seeing the comparison between where the Suns were at before they got Chris Paul and where the Bulls are at right now. They're kind of at a similar impasse. Maybe the Bulls are a little bit behind the timeline that the Suns were at when they had that awesome stretch in the bubble last season. The Bulls are a little bit behind that, I would say. They still have some more moves to make, but the comparisons are certainly there. The Bulls are close. Like we're talking fringe rotation players and a starting point guard away from being actual playoff contenders. And who knows, man? Patrick Williams takes that next leap. Zach Lavine continues to be amazing. Vucevic, obviously not going to be a defender anytime soon, but maybe you bring back a guy like Daniel Tice to lock down the rim. You honestly, man, this team could go the distance with just a few dominoes falling in their direction. The other thing I wanted to point out, which I thought was interesting, so with Monty Williams, with the Suns hiring Monty Williams and then acquiring Chris Paul, former head coach gets his guy back. Billy Donovan, former head coach, could maybe get his guy back. There's a piece to the blueprint just right there of the connections Billy Donovan has in the league, Coach Chris Paul during their own really impressive bubble stretch. So the comparisons are there. That's all I'm saying. And I think the Bulls have a unique opportunity to play their cards right and really make this thing work. And that's why we trust AK. That's why we trust Mark Eversley. I just wanted to break this down, specifically comparing the Bulls rebuild to the Suns rebuild, because I do see a lot of similarities. Now, obviously the Bulls rebuild was different. They acquired these players. They didn't draft them. Most of the players the Bulls drafted are probably not going to be a part of the future of this franchise. Obviously, Wendell Carter Jr. is gone. Lauri Markkanen is probably gone. Kobe White, the jury's still out. It's not totally sure. It's not totally clear what his future will be with the team, but he's still young enough that he has potential to really make an impact in this league. And I keep saying in my videos, I still have a lot of faith in Kobe White. I'm still a fan. So I'm intrigued to see where this goes. And I'm still excited for the future of the Bulls, because if you look at it from this perspective, like, okay, 2 years ago, Suns fans might have been really down on themselves and they might have had a very negative feeling about the future of the franchise. Look at where they are now, man. They're in the NBA Finals. Things change so quickly in this league when you get a new front office. So it might not change that quickly, but we might be a year or two out from having a totally different conversation about our Chicago Bulls. And that gets me fired up. That gets me hype. So thank you guys for hanging out and watching this one. I had a really cool video yesterday, which was me checking out the future of every player on the Bulls roster. And it was a little bit of a game. I had like an interactive graphic, and something I'm really proud of. So if you haven't checked that out yet, make sure to check it out. The link will be in the description. And as always, please make sure to hit that subscribe button. It helps me a lot. Like the video, drop a comment. Let me know what you think about this comparison. Is it fair? Am I stupid? Let me know. I'm a tough guy. I can handle it. If you think I'm stupid, I can handle a little criticism. So thank you guys for hanging out once again, and we will talk very soon.